Let's go, Arkansas Razorback fans. You are the biggest winners if the SEC decides to remain as an 8-game conference schedule. Comment down below, though, would you prefer a 9-game? And then at the end of this video, I'm going to give you what I believe is the best format for the SEC moving forward. Now, just to make sure we are all on the same page, just some simple facts here. In 2023, this is the last year that the SEC will remain as a 14-team league. And then in 2024, Texas and Oklahoma will join the conference, and the SEC is now determining how the actual schedule format would be divvied out. And the biggest debate right now is, would it be an 8-game conference schedule? Would it be a 9-game conference schedule? As many of you know, the SEC currently plays an 8-game conference schedule, and right now they're deciding whether or not they want to keep it. Now, once again, I'll save my preference for the end, but just straight up, the teams that mostly benefit from an 8-game conference schedule are the bottom half recruiters in the SEC, okay? So the non-Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Tennessee, Auburn, Oklahoma, Texas schools, and throw Texas A&M as well because they do recruit in the top 15 for the most part. All the other schools, though, don't recruit at the same level, and they don't have the same level of success. In particular, if you compare it to the LSU, Georgias, and Alabamas of the world. So when you add an extra conference game, it makes it that much more difficult for you to make a bowl game, right? Which is normally a good barometer of success if you are in Arkansas, Missouri, or one of those types of programs. So when you add an extra conference game, it automatically pencils in a more difficult game on the schedule. Now, I like Arkansas a little bit more than other SEC teams when it comes to scheduling because Arkansas has not been fearful of scheduling difficult out-of-conference teams. You can't really say the same about, let's say, like a Kentucky and maybe a few other schools. So, I think Arkansas fans are honestly just kind of numb to schedule difficulty because you're so used to playing such a brutal schedule. But if you are an Arkansas fan and you want what's best for your program in particular, an 8-game conference schedule without reasonable doubt would be better for Arkansas, especially considering right now at the SEC League meetings in Destin, there is no reports of the ESPN brass paying the SEC more money to add an extra conference game to the slate. And when you have listened to Greg Sankey in the past and just other press conferences just in general, and you just look at the basic facts of the situation, well, let's be honest. The SEC has made the playoff every year in the 8-game schedule format. So why change anything if you are the SEC? Because the college football playoff generates a ton of money for the conference. So obviously with playoff expansion happening with the 12-team playoff, it is a lot easier to get in if you get a few losses mixed in there. But for the most part, and this is what I have always said, including my initial video yesterday, it is more important to avoid losses than to actually go out and win football games. I know that doesn't that sounds symmetrical, but it's not, right? Losses far outweigh wins, and it's more important to avoid losses when it comes to actually getting into the field. Now, here towards the end of this video, I'm going to give you a few extra notes here. Once again, all the bottom half teams, I think, benefit from an 8-game conference schedule far more than, let's say, the top half teams. I don't think the top half teams, if there was an extra conference game, I don't think that it would affect them as much getting into the playoffs as many people would think it would. I do think a 9-game conference schedule could severely impact out-of-conference scheduling in the future, and there are some very sexy non-conference matchups already lined up for 2024 and 2025. So an 8-game conference schedule would help with that. But what I would also say, if the SEC remains at 8, it's important to note that if it does do that, it more than likely is going to be a 1-7 format where you would only get to play one team every single season, and it'll be a rotating door for the other 7 teams. Something else to point out is that the divisions will no longer cease to exist in the SEC. So be on the lookout for that as well. One thing I think could happen, though, and I think this would be the worst thing for the SEC, they remain at an 8-game conference schedule, but they keep more than one permanent rival on the schedule. I think that would be really bad. Now, it is time for me to give my preferred schedule format. Well, it's actually kind of, sort of complicated. Boom! I'm looking at you. And don't forget, Razorback fans, Wednesday nights we do an Arkansas-only live stream. You guys have shown me the most love, so I'm going to show you the same love back. We gave out a Traylon Burks card for our first one. We're going to do it again. Another TB16 card will be given out Wednesday. So, and every Wednesday we're going to try and give out stuff. Now, let's chat my perspective. I understand pretty much every single argument out there for 8 or 9 game conference schedules. I know the pros and cons of pretty much all of it. I have heard every single argument. And one thing, whether Arkansas fans like this or not, I would feel pretty certain in an 8-game schedule that this game would no longer be played every year. This has been the most excruciating matchup for Arkansas fans, the annual heartbreak versus the Aggies. So that is something you can rejoice. But in a 9-game schedule, this matchup could survive annually. I am in major favor of a 9-game conference schedule for a lot of different reasons, okay? Now, once again, I understand a lot of the benefits of the 8. We've already discussed quite a few of those, whether it be the out-of-conference schedule, whether it be the bottom-half teams, making it easier on them to actually make it to 6 games and be bowl eligible, and so on and so on and so on. But the 9-game conference schedule is better for everybody. It is better for the neutral observer, whether they're an SEC fan or a non-SEC fan. You get more games. You get sexier matchups week in and week out. And I know, like, what a lot of SEC teams like to do is they schedule a lot of soft opponents early, and the truth is a lot of soft opponents are also scheduled later in the season when it's November, and college football is pretty much the biggest thing on the planet. And MLB baseball is done. We're not quite to the NFL playoff season. November college football is college football's month, if you ask me. And in the SEC, the week before rivalry week, there's just been too many of these soft weeks where nobody is playing anyone. And what a 9-game conference schedule would do is it would force teams to not be able to manipulate the schedule as much as they do right now. So I think a 9-game conference schedule would be better in terms of the content that you guys consume as a whole. Yes, if you're an Arkansas fan, personally, it is better for you to not have, the 8th game be even, let's say, a Kentucky, if you will, or the 9th game be, let's say, a Kentucky, and that instead of that 9th game you're playing UCA or whoever it may be. Because that is a game you're more than likely going to win. And that argument could be made for a lot of different schools, right? If you're South Carolina, it's better for your state if you play a school like Furman instead of playing, Alabama, which could be the 9th game on your conference slate. And as much harder as it would make it on the bottom half schools, so what? This is what you get when you sign up for the best conference in America. This is what you get when you are getting such a big piece of the SEC pie, which, by the way, is distributed evenly. So step your game up, right, if you want to actually make it to 6 wins, okay? That's all there is to it. I understand. It's tougher, but that's what you get when you sign up for this conference. So for me, a 9-game conference schedule is just better. I just think it would be make it a far superior product. And look, the 8-game conference schedule is still entertaining now. Once again, I have a whole channel dedicated to SEC football, but I will say the 8-game schedule with the new additions of Texas and Oklahoma, it would be better if it's a 1-7 format than the format that we have now, which is actually the opposite, where you play 7 permanents and have one team that rotates in that other game. So a few things I like automatically, no matter if it's an 8 or a 9 game, is, well, for sure, we're no longer going to have divisions. I think divisions in sports, when you don't need them, is just stupid. And the SEC doesn't need them. In a 9-game conference schedule, the absolute best thing about it, not only do you get better content, you get a more even distribution of the actual games and the actual teams in the conference. So if a 9-game conference schedule were to exist, you would have 3 permanent teams. And for Arkansas, I'm going to be honest, it looks as if you're going to lose LSU every single season. I love that game. I'm an LSU graduate, LSU fan. But, your permanents could be, I think one of them actually would be Texas A&M. But, your permanents could be Texas. I know Sam Pittman would love to have Texas on the schedule. What we do know, though, is without a doubt, no matter if it's an 8-game or a 9-game, Missouri is going to remain on your schedule, and that's a good thing if you are Arkansas, even though Missouri has had your number quite a few seasons. So let me know what you guys think down below. I just think the 9-game is going to make this conference so much freaking better, okay? It is Power Hour SEC, baby. Boom! And tonight, what are we doing? We're doing buffalo chicken. Let's go.